what do you want to do? I think that's a question that doesn't get asked enough. Like, if you want to go, go. I mean, hopefully it makes sense for you, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want to go, even if it makes sense for you, like, don't go. I don't think it has to be super complicated in that sense. I think you can take your wishes into account.
Hello, everybody. This is Drex, your host. Thank you for being here. It is 1:30 in the morning as we are editing, making these final cuts. And I have tried to do this intro more than a dozen times at this point. And I can't appropriately convey how much the support that Zach has given this show means to me. When I had the thought to do this podcast, I texted Zach and another friend and said, guys, I'm thinking of doing this podcast. Would you guys be willing to be some of the first guests if we did this thing? And Zach immediately texted back, said, absolutely. And you're hearing from him now just because I've been sitting on this interview. Zach has been so supportive this whole time, and he's given great insight, and he's listened to me for hours just talking through things with him, and he's been amazing. So I'm excited for you to get to know him a little bit. He shares some awesome insight into deciding where to go to business school. He went from first round 2 waitlists to then second round. He converted both of those waitlists into offers and got accepted into another school. So he went from having no offers to 3 offers really quickly. And it's a fascinating process. And then he talks a little bit about his career path and his recruiting process and making some pivots and the importance of going to business school to make a pivot and to kind of hit the reset button. It's all fascinating. And I'm excited for you to hear it. So Zach is my next door neighbor. He's a great guy. He's one of the most sincere and just unassuming people you could ever hope to meet. I'm really excited for you to get to hear from him. Please continue to share this, pass it along. The community is growing. I just feel a profound gratitude in my heart for every time someone either reaches out to me and gives feedback or lets me know what they would like to hear differently or lets me know what they like. Thank you for being part of this and thank you for listening. So please continue to do so. Please subscribe, please like, please tell me what you want to hear differently so that we can build this thing and keep growing. It's exciting. And let's get to the good part with Zach Harris. Zach Harris, my literal next door neighbor. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thanks for having me.
This feels really natural, doesn't it?
I love that we're talking, like this wall is right across the wall is where you live.
When we just turn our mics off and just do the rest of it screaming, we could still hear each other. Just yell through the wall. That was an amazing miracle for our families that we ended up living literally a door away from each other. For the listeners, it has been the funnest part of business school for me to watch my son Jack become best friends with Emerson, Zach's little boy. They go to preschool together. It's been such a really fun part of being here in Evanston. Zach, you and I, we met in high school, dude. We met at what do we call it? Leadership camp?
Yeah, it's called Governor's Honors Academy. Is at SUU between junior and senior year in high school, dude. We were bunkmates.
Bunkmates, baby. And then we didn't talk for years. And then suddenly we both decided to go to Kellogg. So give the listeners a little bit of your background. You were at Analysis Group in the Bay Area before. And what else can you tell the listeners?
Yep, did my undergrad at BYU, studied economics, realized I like economics a lot. Kind of a nerd. And so I went and worked for an econ consulting firm called Analysis Group, like you said. Spent 3.5 years there working on litigation consulting. So we were helping prep expert witnesses who were economists who were testifying in trials. That was really fun. I found it really interesting. Got to work with on a lot of cool cases, stuff you see in the Wall Street Journal.
Okay. What was the pace like? Was it fast paced? Were you under tight deadlines all the time?
Yeah. So being in the legal industry, we were constantly beholden to court dates. Sometimes they would change. Lawyers were incredibly demanding. We were working with them a lot. I'm sure you work with lawyers as well. It was pretty fast paced, but very interesting work.
You and I spoke about the emphasis the Analysis Group puts on going to business school or some kind of advanced degree. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about when you decided to go to business school?
Yeah, great question. This is something I've been thinking about for quite a while, actually. My dad has an MBA. I thought it was NBA in the beginning.
You thought it was NBA?
When I was a
good
kid,
basketball player.
Yeah. So I remember being confused by that. And so my parents are very encouraging for us to get an education and been very supportive of that. And so I always kind of thought, I might get a graduate degree and an MBA might be something that I'd be interested in. As I was finishing up college, I was thinking about, okay, this might be in the plans a couple years from now. We'll have to see. And then COVID hit. My job, I was supposed to start in September and they said, hold up, we are not going to have you join until February. So I had 6 months of just sitting around doing doing nothing. I found like a research assistant position to do or something in the meantime, but I was just like not that busy. So I was like, well, this would be a great time to take the GMAT. I buckled down and started studying for that and took it a couple of times before I started my job. So that's when I like first started really thinking about like getting serious about the application.
So years before you would actually apply, you had a gap and you're like, well, I'll use this gap to knock this. That's very productive of you. Is it worth it to you to talk to the listeners about your study journey? Was that something extra difficult for you, or did you do anything that really helped you? Or maybe you just aced it without too much effort?
No, I mean, it was a lot of effort. I put in dozens and dozens of hours studying. I bought these books. It's been so long, I can't even remember what they're called now, but they basically just had all of the concepts you needed to know. It was like a stack of 7 books. It was a lot to go through. And I was just going through all the concepts, making flashcards, quizzing myself. And then I really got into like the practice tests, taking those over and over again. It was quite a bit of work. And then I took the test twice. I took it the first time, wanted to see if I could do a little bit better. I actually did worse the second time. And so I was like, yeah,
not continuing this trajectory. That actually happened to me too. The second time I did a few points worse, and I thought, okay, stop while we're ahead. Yeah. Any particular reason you didn't do GRE?
You know, looking back, I probably should have taken the GRE because a couple years down the road, I was considering other types of graduate programs. But
Interesting.
I knew some people who'd taken the GMAT. I figured, yeah, I'll have to do that.
So you get the score you want. We'll have to backpedal a little bit, but after you get the score you want, you go to work. You go to analysis group for years. So getting back to what made you decide to actually continue the process and pull the trigger to go to business school?
Yeah, great question. It's a bit of a winding journey. There was like peaks and troughs in my entire time in analysis group where I like, I want to go to business school. Other kinds of like, maybe I don't want to go to business school. And then it was like, maybe I want to do a different type of master's degree, like a master's in data science or something like that.
Oh, sure.
A little bit of context. At analysis group, there's like an analyst track and then there's like an upper management track. And to get to the upper management track, you have to have a graduate degree. That's like a rule within the company. And so this is like not very normal, right? Most companies don't require an MBA.
Yeah.
So you have to have like an MBA or some of their masters or a PhD or something like that. So I was working with a lot of people who had graduate degrees. I was talking to them about their experience, getting that. But then I was also like seeing the writing on the wall. I wasn't going to be able to be promoted without some sort of graduate degree. And I just figured, it was time to start looking. So
was that 1 year in, 2 years in? When did you start seeing the writing on the wall, you say?
Probably about 2.5 years in. That's when I started really getting serious about, do I want to go? Do I not? Started talking to people, had a lot of people who were very influential in helping me make that decision. Specifically, like my wife's brother has an MBA, and hearing him talk about his experience, nothing but good things to say, really enjoyed it. And I just kind of felt like I needed to do something, and this felt like a good route for me.
Okay. Help a listener who maybe is battling that same question. Like, do I do an advanced degree in data science, AI, healthcare management? What helped you really finalize on MBA specifically?
It's a tough question. I think there's a lot of things that you can do with your life. Ultimately, you have to do what interests you, right? And so I was slightly interested in like data science, more technical skills, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I didn't see myself as like the person to do that. It's something that I'm good at, but not something that I'm the best at. I guess at the same time, like this was as ChatGPT was coming out, I was kind of starting to see the writing on the wall. Like technical skills, especially the coding skills, they're going to be automated pretty soon. Like maybe that's not the right thing to invest my time in.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, an MBA teaches you how to be a leader, teaches how to communicate, how to empathize with others. Those are things that a robot can't do. I figured that might be a better investment of my time and upskilling myself and going and learning how to code. A computer's going to know how to do that.
Okay. I think it's helpful to hear those small stories or those small opinions and lessons learned for people in that same dilemma. So you got the score you wanted. You were able to kind of use those that one GMAT score from years prior. Talk a little bit more about your application process, what schools you were choosing between and how you decided on Kellogg. Walk us through that journey.
So my company, since they require graduate degrees, they kind of do this little program where they get you going on your application and kind of encourage you to get started early. And so I think it was spring before applications were due, like they were starting to like reach out and do some webinars and be like, hey, get your applications ready.
Oh, that's nice.
Things are going to start ramping up. And that was super cool because I would have procrastinated. I did not realize how difficult putting an application together is in terms of like getting letters of recommendation, writing the essays, which are like so hard to write. It's so hard to write a good essay. Just like gathering all of the information for your application, that just took forever. I started in the spring. Throughout the summer, I kind of refined my essays and decided exactly which schools I was going to apply apply to. I ultimately applied to 4 schools in round 1, was not accepted to any of those schools, which was a real shocker. I got put on the wait list at Booth and MIT Sloan. And, that was like a tough thing to reckon with. I put so much work into it and all of a sudden nothing to show for it. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know anything about the wait list. I didn't know how that was going to turn out. Ultimately, after that, I was like, okay, I had been considering Kellogg, but I just didn't feel like I could fit in a 5th application. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw in a Kellogg application in round 2, see how things turn out. If they don't work out, maybe got to reconsider this whole MBA thing. So I applied for Kellogg round 2.
And Kellogg was the only school you applied to round 2.
Yep.
Yes. You did the 4 in round 1, and then you got waitlisted on 2, then applied to Kellogg round 2.
Yeah, Kellogg accepted me. I think the next day Booth accepted me off the wait list. And so I had that big decision to make. And I went out and visited the schools. Ultimately, I felt like Kellogg was the better fit for me. Then a few months later, I got off the wait list at Sloan. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, ultimately made the decision to stay with Kellogg. So it actually worked out in my favor. I think it was a better fit for me in the long run, and I just didn't realize that as I was applying round 1. But yeah, kind of a funny story. It didn't work out at all like I planned.
That is quite the turnaround from that tragic first round where you feel like nothing went right. You went from 0 to 3 pretty quick there.
Yeah.
Give the listeners, Zach, a quick why Kellogg. What spoke to you about Kellogg that made you choose that over Sloan and Booth? Because both of those are amazing programs, and especially you toying with the idea of going to get a more technical degree, you could very easily argue that both of those schools are more technical. And so what tipped the scales to Kellogg for you?
Yeah, for sure. And really that was why I applied to those schools in the first place. I came from this economics background where I looked at all of the people in my company. They had like a database of where people had gone to school, just like stock full of Booth and Sloan. That was my exposure hearing from those alums. So like those were the ones I was excited about. I was hearing that from my colleagues. So this is something that I would recommend that I did not do very well is to go and visit the campuses of the schools you're applying to. First of all, it just shows the admissions committee that you're really serious about this. Second of all, you need to just be there, talk to students, get the vibes. There's things that you just can't not read about on the internet. And that's what I tried to do. And I wasn't able to really understand the culture and where are you going to sit in class? Like, what's the building going to look like?
Yeah.
When I visited all the schools, nothing against Sloan or Booth. Those are both really good schools. And
Right.
I think I would have done well there. But Kellogg, I don't know, there's just a super friendly atmosphere. The building is beautiful.
So pretty.
That shouldn't be a huge consideration, but that's just
just no veins.
looking over the lake, you can see the skyline of Chicago in the distance. It's just incredible. I've got 2 kids. Evanston just seemed like a better fit than downtown Chicago. It seemed like it was going to be a little bit more comfortable for the family. Frankly, there were a lot of people who were pursuing careers that I was interested in as well. And I felt like that was going to be good for me.
And that's where we should go next. But before we do, I just want to echo what you said about going to campus. And if you can't go to campus while you're applying because the finances don't make sense, at least do everything you can to talk to as many people from those schools.
Yeah, you can kind of proxy for that by talking to alumni and students and that sort of thing, but it's just not the same. And I would know, I applied around 1, so you have to do the campus visits in the spring because in the summer, all the visiting stuff is shut down. People are gone. You can't do it.
That's good to know.
I kind of realized in the summer that I needed to go visit campuses, but none of them were open. People weren't there.
Okay. Yeah. You visit the campus when people are there. I mean, if we're being frank, a big part of that is to get FaceTime to show that you're serious. Being blatant, it helps a lot to invest and get yourself in front of these people physically. Okay. You said that you saw people at Kellogg obtaining careers that looked enticing to you. Take a moment and talk about the good news that you just got recently about summer plans.
Yeah, for sure. A bit of context. My career goal for an MBA was to pivot into tech. I was kind of in this consulting environment. I was living in Silicon Valley. I was actually consulting on a number of cases involving big tech being sued by the US government. And so I kind of got really fascinated by tech, caught the bug.
I want to go get sued. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And my goal for the MBA was to figure out a way to pivot into tech. And yeah, I was able to land a internship with Amazon this summer. I'll be a product manager intern. Super excited about all the experiences that I'll have there. I was really trying to figure out what type of company I want to join in tech. Do I want it to be a bigger company like Amazon? Do I want it to be a smaller company? What role do I want to focus on? Just weighing all of the different options there. There's really a lot of different routes you can take. Pleasantly surprised to get an offer. I think having the chance to get product manager experience at a company like Amazon will be really cool this summer.
I can't do anything but agree. We've spoken at length about about your aspirations. And I know that that is a concern to, go big or go small. There are trade-offs, but I think, the beauty of what you're doing is that you can't go wrong. There's no pivot you can't do. If this isn't what you end up wanting to do, even though, just like you said, it sounds like an amazing opportunity, and I know that you'll do really, really well there. Again, it speaks a little bit to the opportunities that come because you are here at Kellogg. I appreciate you sharing,
Yeah.
your summer plans with
Yeah,
people.
for sure. Like I wouldn't have been able to land something like this just based on the skill set I had before. That's just a fact, I think. And so it really speaks to what business school can do for you. If you need to make a pivot like this, it gives you a lot of opportunities to do that.
Well, I remember you and I were talking about it a few weeks ago. You were talking to me about all the different companies that you guys get to interview with and everything that's going on campus. And I made the comment, wow, you get such amazing access to all these awesome companies and all of these interviews, these opportunities. And you just said, that's kind of why we're here. Like, that's why we're coming to business school. And it seems so obvious. It was still a light bulb, it's like, oh yeah, I guess so. This is an amazing benefit. You get to go to the centralized location and then they come to you. No longer are you going and just sending out all of these applications with a prayer. You're actually at the source and people are coming to you.
Yeah. I mean, caveat, it's still competitive, right? There's hundreds of MBA students all vying for a certain number of spots. And so it's tough. Don't get me wrong. And the job market hasn't been amazing, but yeah, there are a lot of opportunities, and it's really nice to kind of have access to all of those opportunities and do things that you're interested in rather than just like what's available to you.
Awesome. That's a good caveat.
And if I could add, I saw an MBA student on their Twitter profile or X profile or whatever you call it. They said like on 2-year sabbatical. And I laughed at that. I thought that was really funny. But as I thought about it more, like that's actually a decent reason to get an MBA. I think there is value in like taking time to just sit there and reflect on what you want and be able to pivot your career towards that.
That's something that I unfortunately believe full-heartedly because I am working full-time and I see you guys able to breathe and step back and really reflect. It's not something that I was able to optimize for going to business school, but I guess I'm jealous that you do get that chance because I think it's a deliberate and a good opportunity for you. So with the last few minutes that we have, Zach, talk as if you're talking to your little sibling who is thinking about business school. Tell them either your favorite part of business school, a secret silver bullet to getting into business school, or something that has surprised you, not a negative way, but something that has shocked you adversarially about business school.
Ooh, there's a lot of ways I could go with that. I mean, first of all, I think I would say to anyone considering going to business school, if you go and like read online, talk to people, everyone's talking about the ROI, right? Like, what should I do? What are the pros and cons? What's the benefits? Like, how much money I'm going to make?
Right.
It's all this like, what should you do based on all the information? What do you want to do? I think that's a question that doesn't get asked enough. Like, if you want to go. I mean, hopefully it makes sense for you, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want to go, even if it makes sense for you, like, okay, I don't think it has to be super complicated in that sense. I think you can take your wishes into account. So I'm just like, what should you do? Like, what do you want to do? Life is too short to just do what you should do all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to tell Emerson that. I'm going to tell your son that. That's great advice.
Yeah, that was there's limits to that strategy. And then challenges at business school, it's an interesting culture. This is one of my hangups with coming to business school is there's a lot of conformity and there's a lot of people looking around like fear of missing out. People are going into consulting or they're going into search funds or like you kind of feel like you might be missing out if you don't jump on the bandwagon and do what other people are doing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd say even if you go to business school, make sure that you are, being true to yourself, being true to what you want to do, what you want your life to look like. There's not just one path for an MBA grad. You can kind of take it however you want to do it. Don't fall into the conformity trap, doing something because everyone else wants to do it.
That seems like advice that you're practicing. I can understand why you would say that. I feel like it would be easy to get caught up in, Kellogg's a great consulting farm. So it'd be easy to just like, okay, I think that's great advice. Zach, anything else? Any other thing that you thought of or anything you want to share?
I don't think so, unless there's something that you feel like we haven't touched on.
I know that Aubrey is going hard at Bunko, so we'll let you get back to your studies before she gets home so that you can spend some time with her. But Zach, thank you so much. Thanks for being a great neighbor in more ways than one. And thanks for sharing your story, your insights, and some advice.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun to chat. We should do this more often. We should talk.
Why don't we ever talk, dude?
Knock on the wall and you can come over and say hi. Sure, my mom will listen to it.
So we got to get into the mom community. We can just get all of our moms to listen, and they'll get our aunts to listen.
Oh, I mean, for your sake, my mom will probably share it, but it probably won't be with your target audience.